Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Plami, and in this episode of Plami's Thoughts On, I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts on the 5th episode of the 6th season of Fear the Walking Dead. I'd say this actually might be my second favorite episode of the season after the premiere. Although episode 2 with Strand and Alicia is also a solid contender because it really reminded me of old Fear the Walking Dead. But this one was my second favorite because it featured so many of the characters that I've enjoyed in the last few episodes. Like this episode was pretty much focused on Dwight and Sherry as I was expecting it was going to, even before the trailers or the promos or whatever. Like I read the episode descriptions and it said it was going to be Dwight and Sherry, so I was almost 100% sure that it was going to be about Dwight and Sherry and they were going to be featured on the title card. So I was right, and I actually really like the title card. I love the title cards this season, if I gotta be honest. Like every episode focusing on a different character and featuring them on the opening, it's really cool. I really like that. It adds personality to the episodes in a certain way, you know. I like it. I think this is a better way of doing an ensemble show than what The Walking Dead is doing, if I gotta be honest. Because a lot of the times The Walking Dead, like especially in season 10, it has felt kind of all over the place and aimless. Because like, who's the main character? There, even if it is an ensemble show, there has to be a character which the show focuses on the most and from which we see the perspective from. I think for season 9, even though Rick was in it for like the first 5 episodes only, for the rest of it, our main character or our point of view was kind of Henry, I guess. He was kind of the focus of the season and the main character. And I feel like that's something that helped for season 9, for the rest of season 9 to feel more coherent and like it was going in a certain direction. While season 10 has been kind of all over the place. I know that Daryl and Michonne and Carol are kind of like the main characters, but we don't really focus on one of them from whose perspective we are seeing it. And each episode we might feature him, we might not feature him. Well, with Fear the Walking Dead season 6, we still know that Morgan is kind of the main character, you could say, because we've seen him in every single episode. But every single episode has also focused on different characters, so it hasn't had to be. It hasn't felt like all over the place, even though it's completely different characters each episode. There's still a connection between the episodes, and it doesn't feel like the show is focusing on minor characters instead of the main character, you know? I feel like they're just doing it better than the main show. But yeah, this episode, I really enjoyed it. There's so many moments that I really liked. My favorite might be the standoff or just a little talk between Morgan and Dwight, which I'm gonna get to during the recap review. But yeah, I really liked it a lot, this episode. So we opened the episode with Dwight and Sherry sharing an intimate moment because they haven't seen each other, of course, for like a year and more even. So they're together in bed, but they are interrupted by somebody calling Dwight on the radio. That being some of Virginia's people, because he was supposed to call back, and supposedly Al was supposed to cover for him, but apparently she hasn't. And Dwight manages to buy himself 2 days more time. So they continue with Sherry, kissing with Sherry, but then she, after he suggests to her to run away, because he was also mentioning that if he found her, he would run away with her. He was going to use a walker and make him look as if it was him who had died, and leave the walker for people to find it and think that Dwight had died. But Sherry, for some reason, says that she doesn't want to leave. She's not ready to leave, and she can't just leave. And then she leaves for the other room, and for some reason there's some sounds after that, and Dwight goes out looking for her, and then as he goes towards the door, he opens a curtain and he sees somebody with a white mask there. And honestly, I think this is a really creepy moment. I personally really liked it. And I actually thought this season was going to have even more of a horror element that it has had so far. But I really like that scene. And Dwight gets captured and taken to an empty pool slash a skater park. I don't know which one of the two it is because it's very hard to tell. When I was watching it, I thought it was a pool, but somebody on the Fear the Walking Dead subreddit mentioned that it's a skate park, and it would make sense that it is because Austin Emilio is an actual skater. I think he's a professional skater, even. I don't know. So it would be cool if it is actually a skater ramp. And in that moment it turns out that Sherry is actually with these masked people, which doesn't surprise me. It was very clear that she was with some of the people. Like, a lot of people theorized that maybe she was with the end is the beginning people, but apparently she's not, and is with these masked guys who are outcasts of Virginia's communities, people who she has kicked out or she just didn't want to take in. And I guess it's kind of cool how many different factions we have this season. We have Morgan and his group, we have the Outcast, we have Virginia, and we have the End is the Beginning guys. And I think we're probably gonna see even more people. I don't know, we'll see how that's gonna go. And I actually like the leader of this group. Apparently he's a character that was featured last season. And it's kind of cool how a lot of the characters who were misused or just not given attention last season are actually getting a lot of attention and focus this season. He wasn't focused on in this episode, but I liked him as a leader. He was actually kind of cool and intimidating, and I liked his look. He looked badass. I liked him. I'll definitely be happy to see more of him. And I would love to see him become more of a prominent character. Even his second in command, who is a little bit of an asshole. Like, they're actually a pretty interesting group, all things considered. I like them a lot. So, apparently, I was gonna say Honey because Dwight keeps calling her Honey, so that's kind of in my head right now. But Sherry is apparently not a leader, but it's up there. She's working with them, she's helping them out to take down Virginia. Although at first it doesn't make sense, why the hell does she give a shit about Virginia? I don't think she ever mentioned or it was implied that she was ever involved with Virginia, or that she was left out by Virginia, she was kicked out by Virginia or anything like that. So I don't really get why she gives that much of a shit, but by the end of the episode we do get why. But it's still it's a little contrived, and I feel like if she was actually kicked out by Virginia or or she was just not taken in by Virginia, it definitely would make a little bit more sense. It still makes sense with what they tried with what they did in the episode, but it's just a little bit contrived for me. So Dwight decides to help them out, obviously, for obvious reasons. And they say that they know where the MRAP, or otherwise known as Althea's truck, the big ass army truck, is going to be, so they are planning on blowing it up. But Althea shows up because she was also captured by them, and tells them that they're not going to be able to blow it up and that it's better to steal it. And this leads us to the best action sequence of this season. I would say it was really fucking cool. I've seen some people complain about the effects in that scene, but I don't really think there was any effects. Like, there was one moment where it felt like they were using CGI and green screen, but I'm not even sure that they actually did, and I'm gonna get into it in a second. But I really love how the way that this episode was shot, because right at the beginning of the action scene we start to hear this exciting action music, and I love it. it's the first time I've really noticed a good action scene music. It was really cool. And I love the way how it was shot, basically focusing on the horses' mouths and them breathing out. Like, that's really cool. That's some really cool cinematography. I love that. And with the music, I was really excited with all of them running after the truck. And at first, when the leader, who is a guy that Dwight left alive in the last season, that I said that I really like and would love to see more of him, smacks something on the front of the truck. At first I didn't know what it was. I thought he just fucking missed the window or was trying to intimidate the guy by hitting the window. But then on a rewatch, or should I say when I was watching reactions to the episode, I noticed that he actually took out the antenna, which is actually fucking smart. And I really like that attention to detail. And then they try to get closer to the truck, but then he uses the guns and stupidly wastes his ammo because he's a fucking moron. Then he tries to run them over by pushing them to the side, but he's not able to. So Dwight gets on the truck and gets inside, and somehow the guy was dumb enough to not realize that he was doing that. But he's able to kick him out. Dwight is able to kick the driver out of the car and is able to stop the car as well. And this is the moment where I felt like the green screen maybe was obvious, or I don't know. I don't really think they used green screen for the sequence, for the whole sequence. I think they actually shot it. It looks like they shot it. I don't know how they would have done a green screen, honestly. Maybe for the last scene in which Dwight was supposed to grab the wheel, because it would be too dangerous for them to do it IRL. Maybe for that scene there they used green screen, but for the rest of it they didn't really. I don't think they did, at least. Also, I thought it was a clever way, the masks were a clever way to use stunt people. I don't know for how many of the scenes they actually used stunt people. I only thought that it felt obvious that the guy on the truck who was supposed to be Dwight felt like it wasn't Dwight. I don't know if it was. I doubt it was Austin Emilio. I just kind of felt like it wasn't. I don't know. So they stopped the truck, but the guy had run away. And guess who shows up out of fucking nowhere? Like a fucking Red Dead Redemption character. I fucking laughed at that scene because it genuinely felt like Red Dead Redemption. And I haven't played the game. I know a lot of people like it. I've only seen some YouTubers like Jelly, Slugman, and Quabblecop play it, so that's my only experience of the game. But in one of their videos, they had some... they dragged each other with horses like that. So it was really funny seeing Morgan drag this guy with a rope on the ground. It was really funny. I like that. And we kind of have a confirmation on the fact that Sherry wasn't the one who saved Morgan and who patched him up, because she didn't recognize him, because I think she never saw him as Alexandria as well. So he gets back with them to the place, and they have a nice little chit-chat around the fire in the evening. And when I watched that scene, it reminded me of something that I feel like the main show has been lacking a little bit. We haven't really had moments of like just sitting around and enjoying ourselves, like, you know. Remember that scene in season 3 when they got first the prison for the first time, when they cleaned the yard and they were having a nice sitting around the fire at the evening? That was actually very nice and very cool. Like, we need those moments of calmness and happiness for the characters, so we actually feel more angry or excited or sad whenever something bad happens to the character. Because if it's only bad things, it becomes a misery porn, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't feel like it works for a long-going show. Because at a certain point you just get sick of all this bad stuff happening. While when there's a bit of a balance between good and bad and enjoyment and sadness, it just, those two emotions then hit harder. Seeing our people be happy and enjoying themselves, juxtaposed with them suffering and being in pain. It just makes it better, you know. So I really like this nice moment between them sitting around the fire and talking, and there was a bunch of really nice self-aware writing again. Like, I love when this season goes into the self-aware dialogue and it actually acknowledges its tropes that it has been doing, because Sherry mentions how Dwight has told her about Morgan's "all life is precious" bullshit, and it was just so funny to see the show itself call this out, because the fans have been calling it out since season 6 of the main show, to be honest. People hated it in season 6. In season 7 it got even more annoying. Then the Clear Morgan was back. Then for Fear the Walking Dead season 4, All Life is Precious Morgan was back. So yeah, it's been annoying, and him being called out, I really like that. But I love that he actually shut her down and told her that he knows that he has to do some bad things to get what he wants, and that if he wants to protect his people, he has to do bad things. But he just wants them to not attack right now, because the plan by these outcast people, let's call them the outcasts, is that they want to use to attack Virginia now and risk everybody else who is still in the communities, like John, Luciana, June, Grace, and risk their lives just to take down Virginia. And if it doesn't work, they would be fucked. And Morgan just asked them to wait until we get our people out of the communities and then attack, which I think it's actually fucking sensible. It makes sense, and it's really cool seeing this Morgan be actual normal person, not a fucking all life is pressure asshole who just forces his philosophy on everybody, and it's not a fucking savage who kills everybody in his way. I love that he's actually feeling like an actual person now. And there's another moment with Morgan during this talk where he says that he and Dwight know what happened, that they fought a war that took way too long. Like, I bursted out laughing when I heard that, because people have been complaining and criticizing All Out War for taking so fucking long, because it was like 2 fucking seasons, and it's just funny having the writers fucking acknowledge it. I don't know what happened with the writers. I'm more and more unable to believe that it's the same writers of the last 2 seasons, because the last 2 seasons were bad. They weren't self-aware in any way, shape, or form. So where the fuck did this fucking 4-dimensional self-awareness came from? I don't know, but I fucking love it, because it acknowledges all the tropes and bad stuff and everything. And this gets me to the next scene, which I really like, and which has my favorite line in this episode. Which is, after this scene, Sherry still refuses to live with Dwight and go with Morgan because he offered them that. So Dwight, because the only way he thinks that he can be with Sherry is if they take down Virginia. Now he is kind of starting to backslide into his savior ways, and he goes to interrogate the guy that they captured, and he even uses music as torture, as he did back at the sanctuary. So he's genuinely backsliding into his savior ways. And if it wasn't for Morgan, he probably would have ended up letting a dog eat this guy. So that was actually really nice to see him backslide into that, and there's a possibility of that, because for the last 2 seasons he's been kind of, well, he's only has been in the show in season 5, but he has been a do-gooder, just like Morgan, and he's trying to redeem himself, I guess. So seeing him conflict with that just because Sherry is back, it's kind of interesting. And then in the next scene, at least one of the next scenes, Morgan and Al are apparently planning to steal the truck and get away, so they won't have any weapon with which to attack Virginia. But then they are actually found out by Dwight, who and it's also revealed that everybody else also was around them and knew that they were talking about that. And here comes the best scene of the episode for me, where they decide to put Morgan and Al in the place where the guy who was driving the truck was, and put them there so they cannot interfere with the plan to kill Virginia when the people who Dwight previously had called with the radio to come, because he apparently had found a community of 100 people. But at that moment, Dwight says that to Morgan that he's sorry, and Morgan says, "Are you?" And I just love the way even Austin Emilio delivers it. He says, "No." And I loved how after that he says, we all want the same thing. We all want to be free and to be the ones in control of our lives. Hell, maybe even Virginia is right with that. But there's always a fight because of that. And somebody's gotta lose. And I just love how self-aware this is about the fact that this is basically the reason for all the conflicts in the Walking Dead universe in general. It's always somebody subjugating somebody else, and there's always a fight, and somebody has to lose. It's just such a good line. I love it so much. It's my favorite moment there. But then it turns out that Sherry also is going to force Dwight in that place with them, because she saw him kind of slip into his savior ways, and she doesn't want that to happen to him again, because he has changed over the last like a year or so that he hasn't seen her. He's become good again, and she doesn't want to make him become bad because of her again. So they get locked up, but then Dwight talks with Morgan and tells him that he was right, and he changes his mind basically. So he gets himself out and goes to stop Sherry from doing something that she might regret. And this is another really good scene, and it really showed the acting chops of the actress for Sherry, who I didn't really think was amazing or anything when she was on The Walking Dead. Not that she had much to do, but in that scene Dwight went to her after escaping to prevent her from killing Ginny with the truck, and she's kind of split up between what Dwight is talking to her and what the leader of the Outcast is telling her, and she just doesn't manage to do it. And I just love how she screams, "You had to make it hard, you had to make it hard." I just love that. The pure emotion in her screams was so good. I love it so much. And then they have a talk after that in which they actually name drop Negan, which is something that I can't believe they actually fucking did. I wish they actually, that Dwight actually mentioned what happened at the end of All Out War, because he was still there. The main group defeated Negan. He's still alive, and the saviors weren't massacred by our people, but are actually joined with them now. But they only pretty much name dropped Negan. And it's kind of revealed, which at this point you probably would have already realized if you watched the episode, that the reason why Sherry's so adamant and really wants to kill Ginny is because of the pent-up frustration and anger and PTSD that she has from Negan. It's not about Ginny. She doesn't really give a shit about her, but she wants to kind of redeem herself for not doing more to stop Negan when she was back at the Sanctuary. And I understand that. I actually think this is a real way of exploring that character. Like, this is a really cool way of exploring that character, because it's not just making up shit for her to do on Fear the Walking Dead, kind of like how they've done for Morgan for season 4 and 5, and for Dwight in season 5, but they actually explore the things that the characters have been through on the main show, and they're just showing the follow up of that on Fear the Walking Dead. This episode is probably the truest Fear the Walking Dead has been as a spin-off, because for the first 3 seasons it just has been a show set in the same universe. It hasn't really been a spin-off in the proper definition of the word. Even in season 4, it hasn't much been of a spin-off, as it has been kind of like a, I don't know, side quest, for lack of a better term. While in this episode, it genuinely felt like a spin-off because it featured characters from the main show that have went through something together, or relatively together, through the same thing, and are now exploring how that has changed them and influenced them. So I really like that. So at that point, because Sherry doesn't want to cause Dwight to become bad because of her, and because she's still not ready to forgive herself, at least that's how I understood it. She doesn't want to go with Dwight back to Morgan's place, so she stays with the outcast, but Al and Dwight decide to go with Morgan. And before we see the final scene with them going with Morgan, there's one scene in which the dog that has been featured throughout the episode, which was in a cage because I think it was dangerous and there's a possibility that it was going to bite some people. Dwight decides to go to it and let it out. I think this is a intentional parallel to what happened on the main show with Sherry. And the dog is basically a stand-in for Daryl in a way. So it's a really nice connection with the main show, and I actually think some people have theorized that that dog might be Dog from the main show, which is Daryl's dog. I think that would be actually really fucking cool if that is the case, even though it's pretty far-fetched considering they're in Texas and the main group is in Virginia, but we don't know if Daryl has had the dog since a little pup, so who knows. But to explain what the parallel is, basically the dog in the cage is Daryl. If you remember, in season 7, Daryl was in a cage at the sanctuary, and Sherry was the one who let him out and then run away, leaving Dwight at the sanctuary. In this case, Dwight let out the dog, which is Daryl, out and run away, leaving Sherry to deal with the bad guy. So I think that's a very nice parallel with what the story of this episode has been, between how the all-out war has changed them, and how they've changed even after all-out war, and how they've dealt with the PTSD basically from living under Negan. So it was nice ways to end that. I thought the scene in which they used walkers to as stand-ins for themselves, like Dwight and Al used walkers as stand-ins for themselves, so people would think that they died, as a really cool thing. And maybe she might even think that it was the end is the beginning guys that they kill, who killed them, because I believe they left the walkers with ropes. So I think that's an intentional convenience, because while Al and Dwight know about the end is the beginning guys, they don't really know they are a threat or anything. Well, Virginia actually does, as we saw in the promo for the next episode. So the fact that they left the walkers tied up, it makes it much more believable that it's actually Al and Dwight. So that's kind of funny. And yeah, then they leave to go to Morgan's place, and they get also the people from the building who apparently were hidden in an abandoned truck or something. That's a little dumb and nonsensical, but I don't care. It was a minor part of the episode. So yeah, this is another really good episode, and another episode that shows the strengths of this season, like the self-awareness, the awareness of the tropes. And now that I think about it, I definitely have to check out TV Tropes for Fear the Walking Dead Season 6. I really hope somebody has written about it, because I really love that website. I think that website might have influenced me into becoming a writer, or at least taught me a lot of things about becoming a writer, because I think it was in 2017 when I was fucking constantly reading that website for every single show that I've ever watched. And after that is basically when I decided to become a writer. So yeah, I'm curious what is written about it there. But I just love the self-awareness, the awareness of the tropes of this season. And it's just the dialogue is so much better. This season is fucking amazing. So yeah, how am I going to rate this episode? I think I would rate this episode an 8.5 to an 8.9 out of 10. It's still, I'd still would say the first episode of the season with Morgan is the best one, just because it's just a genuinely good episode that is self-contained. It works as a self-contained episode, it works as an episode part of a bigger story. It's just that good. It feels like a mini Morgan movie. So I really hope they go for that same thing with the Rick movies, but we'll see. And this episode definitely needs all the connections from the last 4 episodes basically to work. But yeah, it's definitely more enjoyable than the last one, if for nothing else, because it focuses on characters that I actually have years of investment into, basically, namely Dwight and Morgan, and to a certain extent Sherry, because she was on the main show in season 6 and then in season 7. So yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. Excluding the first episode, it's probably the best one so far. But it's probably my 3rd favorite, because I just like episode 2's old Fear the Walking Dead feel that much more. I just love how much the second episode felt like old Fear the Walking Dead. So that's why that one will be second. But yeah, at the end of the season, I will be probably doing a video on whether the thoughts that I have for this season have changed and how I feel overall about the whole season. But that's gonna be probably a while, because this season is ending, I believe, with the mid-season at least. It's only until season episode 7, because they haven't shot episode 8 or haven't completed everything about it, which would be the actual mid-season finale. And they, as far as I know, they haven't started shooting the second half of season 6, so we don't know when they will. Probably for summer of 2021, because they've started shooting for the main show recently, for the final third of the season 10. So considering how bottle episode like this season has been of Fear, I don't really see the problem with them continuing to do these bottle episodes for the second half. But maybe they were planning something bigger for the second half, so I don't know. We'll see where that's gonna go. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, so I also hope you enjoyed this review. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the link in the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me there, and to my Wattpad, where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you end up enjoying my stories, or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon, where you can pledge your support and help keep the channel going and help support me so I can keep writing the stories you enjoy. But still, if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think it's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!